So we are going to encourage everyone to please turn off your audio unless and until you are called upon. And we will have the candidates present today will be Russell Brooksbank, a Libertarian candidate, and Timothy Peck, the Democrat candidate. So please remember that this session is an informative session. It is not a debate, and we ask that everyone be civil in addressing your questions, in talking with the candidates, and in just participating in this forum. Each candidate will be given initially 2 minutes in order to give some opening remarks. Then they will have questions asked them by the moderator. And if you have a question that you wish to ask, we ask that you go into chat, and on the line where it says "to," you direct your question to one question moderator. And what you do is just indicate to one question moderator that I have a question. You do not have to type in the question. We don't screen the questions that you asked. Just tell her that you have a question, and then you will be called upon in the order that the questions are received.
Recording in progress.
Yes, we are recording this session, so that's another reason, and we do post it for viewing for people that are unable to attend today. So the candidates will each have 90 seconds for a response, and the order that I will be calling upon the candidates will alternate. As time allows, we will go into having your questions. I did want to tell you, if you have a question when you ask it, please try to do so within 1 minute. And then each candidate will have 90 seconds for closing remarks. Community Access Television is recording this session, including all of the questions that the audience asks. After we're done, there will be a 90-second closing for each candidate as well. So we ask you all to please participate actively, get your questions ready. Be sure to type into one question moderator to let them her know that that you have a question that you wish to ask. And to kind of get us started, I will call upon Mr. Brooksbank to give his opening statement.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Russell Brooksbank. I'm the Libertarian Party candidate for U.S. House of Representatives. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this event. The quickest way to turn this country around is for we, the people, to educate ourselves and get involved. All of the candidates have two things in common. We all have a why, and we all have a vision. And my why is simple. I'm running in order to leave my grandchildren government of the people, by the people, and for the people, instead of a government of the special interest, by the special interest, and for the special interest. I envision an America where all individuals are sovereign over their lives and no one is forced to sacrifice his or her values for the benefit of others, where we are free to live our lives as we see fit, provided we don't violate the rights of someone else while we're doing it, and where the people come first. And I believe we can have all these things if we want them. And that is why I'm asking for your vote this November. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooksbank. Tim Peck will now give his opening.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you to the League.
Thank you to everybody here who's shown up on a Saturday morning, rainy Saturday morning. My name is Tim Peck. I'm running for Indiana 9, U.S. Congress. I'm here to represent all of you and all Hoosiers who are feeling like they deserve to be seen, like they deserve to be heard, like they deserve to have someone in DC that they can be proud of representing them again. You may notice that our third opponent, Erin Houchin, is missing from this forum. She's publicly stated that she will not debate or be in a forum with either of us. She doesn't want to explain her voting record, doesn't want to explain her connection to their corrupt Indiana 9 GOP chair, Jamie Knoll, who's in jail right now, that she took money from. And regardless of your political views, you deserve better than that. We have a big problem in the United States that I'd like to solve, that we can't seem to disagree and still make progress. The divisiveness in DC must stop. As an emergency physician, a father and husband, someone who lives on a farm here in New Washington, down in Clark County, an advocate in DC who's testified before Congress, and a business owner, a job creator, I have the experience, the determination, and the compassion to represent all Hoosiers, regardless of party. Both Russell and I have agreed to be honest and transparent about our views, and I'll outline a vision bringing back progressive politics and fiscal responsibility to Indiana 9, similar to that of the days of Lee Hamilton. Hope to earn your vote today and your trust, and I promise you, I will do the work and I will not waste that vote. Thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you, Tim, very much for those opening remarks, and you as well, Russell. Since we haven't had any questions put into the queue yet, we have a few pre-prepared questions, so I will delve into that, and I will be asking Tim to first respond to this question. What government programs do you think need to be strengthened, or what programs need to be cut, and why?
Great, thank you, Sonia. Thank you for the 90-second timer. Yeah, I am an emergency physician. Again, I have a ton of experience with healthcare policy, understanding the business of medicine, technology of medicine, research, and policy, being an expert witness before Congress. I've also had experience getting through bipartisan legislation back in 2017, 18, 19 through Congress, all about reforming healthcare, especially Medicare. And so to answer your question, I do think our entitlements, meaning Medicare and Social Security, should not be cut in terms of what they offer us, in terms of the services that we have. They are too important to the social fabric of our country. I do think, however, that Medicare can be much cheaper than what it currently is and bring greater quality. And I do have the experience to do that through something called value-based care. And I hope that I can explain more about value-based care as we move on in this forum. Right now, we pay for healthcare in such a way that we don't get the most value out of it. And because of that, the cost is way too high, the bloat is way too high. And where I will spend a lot of effort is making sure Medicare works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Russell, I would now ask you the same question. What government programs do you think need to be strengthened, or what programs need to be cut, and why?
Well, I'm a libertarian, and that, for those who do not know, that means that we want the smallest government possible. And so the answer to that is we want to cut all the programs. And, Tim brought up, the fact that we're not getting the value of our money from, Medicare, things like that. And, I believe that's because the government's involved. And if we get the government out of the healthcare business, if we get the government out of, the real estate business, out of business in general, then I believe that the free market would handle these things. So I believe that the role of government is to secure our rights, and anything it does beyond that is, overstepping.
Thank you very much, Russell. Everybody needs to be putting on their thinking caps and getting some questions into the queue. And while you are doing that and sipping on your coffee a little bit, I'm going to ask another question. And this time, Russell, I will be asking you to answer first. While prices have been dropping, concerns about inflation still exist. What steps can you take to ensure the long-term stability of our economy?
Well, the first thing that we could do is stop printing money. That's exactly why we have inflation. Is a lot of the proponents of these government programs say that we can fund them. All we have to do is print more money, and every time you do that, the dollar is devalued. And so it's basically a tax on the people. So I think the best way for us to have a strong economy is to have a government that spends within its means, and a government that basically leaves the market alone and lets it do what it does best, which is grow.
Russell, thank you for that answer. Tim, I will now turn to you and ask the same question. While prices have been dropping, concerns about inflation still exist. What steps can you take to ensure the long-term stability of our economy?
Well, I am a Democrat, but it would be someone who you describe more as a blue dog Democrat, someone who's more moderate and even conservative fiscally. And believe it or not, I agree with Russell. We have printed a lot of money and put it into this economy, which has caused inflation. However, we did have a certain depression coming our way with the pandemic and the essentially disruption and stopping of our economy. And a lot of that money needed to be printed, but we did print too much. And so we have a problem with that right now. And what that's really done is benefit a lot of wealthy people. It's benefited a lot of the working people and working poor to keep them afloat. But the working poor now with inflation have stayed poor, have been unable to put money away. As interest rates rose, they've been unable to put savings away and be able to get the American dream. Homes are difficult to buy right now due to supply and demand. We need more supply of starter homes and abilities to buy them. And I think housing is an enormous thing that we need to work on to help our economy and have upward mobility. Finally, we had the most unproductive government in the last 2 years in terms of people working together on either side of the aisle. We used to be able to work together. We had a balanced budget with Clinton and Gingrich not too long ago. Imagine doing that today. We can try to put people in Congress who will work across the aisle, be able to pass bills and fix this economy.
Thank you very much, Tim. We do have a couple of people in the audience who are wanting to ask questions, and I would just remind everyone that the questions should be no more than 1 minute long, and please make sure to be respectful to the candidates and everyone else participating in the forum. The first person that I'm going to call in to ask a question is Pam Rader. Pam, if you would like to unmute and ask your question, and we will direct this question first to Tim.
What's your position on single payer health care?
Thank you, Pam.
So my position is one of a realistic view for tomorrow and a goal for the future. So a realistic view tomorrow is that we have a pretty divided government right now. And how do we make sure that healthcare and people are not uninsured in this country, and that healthcare is affordable? Well, if we try to go toward single payer healthcare, and what the Congressional Budget Office often gives as a price tag for those, which is in the trillions and sometimes double-digit trillions, we're never going to get the support of our Republican colleagues across the aisle. So for tomorrow, there are ways to make reform in how we're paying for healthcare, to be able to make it less expensive and even save Medicare as we know it, as in 2028, it's already predicted that we will start to go towards insolvency and not be able to pay all of our hospital bills. In the future, I do think that the privatization of healthcare, we can chip away at it today, but the greater privatization of healthcare, there is a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse that we need to cut and get out of the system. I think there will always be a role for private industry in healthcare, but we need to change the rules in which those private industries are involved, because right now it has become about more than money, has become about money more than people. So I don't believe that we ever should be in a full single payer healthcare system, but I do think the role of Medicare should be expanded as much as possible in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you very much, Tim. Russell, the same question to you. Do you recall the question?
Yes, ma'am. I am personally against single payer healthcare, and my reason is that everybody is different. Everybody's situation is different. So, to have a one size fits all type of healthcare system is not good. I mean, if you're a healthy individual, you're not spending as much. So why should you put more into the system than you're going to get out? And also, I'm going to go back again and say, as a libertarian, I don't believe that this is the government's role. We get accused a lot of, wanting poor people to die and, that we don't want to take care of our neighbor, but that's completely untrue. We want to take care of our neighbor. We just don't believe that the government is the best avenue to do that. We prefer voluntary giving. And I look back and I ask people, before all these government programs came about, back in the Depression, show me a picture of all the bodies stacked up in the street of people starving to death. And you won't find that. But you will find pictures of people standing in line at a church soup kitchen to be fed. So I believe that we as Americans will rise up and take care of our fellow man. It's just that right now we have a paradigm that says that there's a program for that, so I'm not going to donate. And I think that's where the social programs like a universal health care have worked towards killing the soul of the country. And so to restore the soul, I say, get the government out of it.
Thank you, Russell, for your response. I just wanted to advise everyone, apparently we are having some problems with the timer. And so our host will interject when you have about 10 seconds left for your responses or for your questions. So just trying to update you on some challenges with technology. Okay, we do have another question from the audience, and I would call upon Ahmad Ali. And Ahmad, I would ask you to unmute and ask your question. And please remember, it needs to be 1 minute maximum.
Hi there, everybody. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My question goes to both these gentlemen. Thanks for doing what you're doing. We're in a different situation right now. There are lots of policy issues to discuss. However, the current incumbent supports a movement right now that is totally against the very foundational principles of our democracy. Our democracy is at stake. And my question to the current candidates, what are you doing to rebuke the current movement that goes against our foundational principles? And what are you doing to expose the fact that the current incumbent supports those threats to our democracy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. And I would ask Russell, could you respond to that question first, please?
Okay, first I'd have a question. What movement are you talking to? What movement are you referring to? But as far as what am I doing to get us back to what the founders intended was, I'm running for Congress and I'm getting involved and, I speak out. I think when we talk about things that are harming our democracy, I think things like the two-party system that is really unconstitutional, but the two old parties have colluded with each other to silence every other voice, and so I'm working daily against that.
Russell, thank you very much for your response. Tim, I would now turn to you for your response.
Ahmad, I thank you for the question, and I assume that you're referring to Project 2025, and perhaps I can ask that question back to Ahmad to clarify the question before answering it.
Okay. Oh, no problem. And Russell can go back and answer a little bit based on some more detail here. Project 2025 definitely is part of the movement that I'm talking about, because there's a lot of policy ideas that are mentioned there. But it's not just Project 2025. What I'm trying to be very clear about is that the current movement, the MAGA movement, led by Mr. Trump and supporters of his like Mrs. Houchin, they are everything against our foundational principles that create the guardrails that we have to keep our democracy stable, so that we can have law and order and the things that have kept us moving the past 200 or so years. We are at an unprecedented time since the Civil War, with those very foundational principles being threatened. The peaceful transfer of power, trying to cheat in elections, getting 11,000 votes from Georgia, et cetera. There's lots of examples to describe. There's lots of examples to describe this, and Ms. Houchin has not rebuked those very threats to our democracy. And so I was wondering what the candidates today are doing to share this with the 9th District constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Did that clarify it for you, Tim?
It certainly did. So thank you for that. I'm going to start with what might seem a little bit surprising, but the question is, how do we work with people who disagree with us so adamantly? And the way that I've done this is firstly, just using the skills that I've learned as a emergency doctor and a doctor by the bedside, being able to listen to people. I don't treat people based on them being a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or libertarian. I treat them based on being a neighbor. And I've brought that same type of attitude toward people in this district. I've gone into the quote unquote reddest areas and did candidate forums. I have sponsored 17 county fairs and been at all of them multiple days speaking to people. And it doesn't matter if they're wearing a MAGA hat or a Harris t-shirt. I will speak to them and listen and explain my views. And often those views don't match, but there are ways, if you could start to listen, to be able to get through to most people as well. I think when it comes to this movement that you speak of, I think the extreme of it is the 2025 plan backed by the Heritage Foundation and others. And it is, something that even Mr. Trump is trying to distance himself from. It includes things like eradicating gay marriage, in which, again, I've been to 5 Pride events in our district and showing up and doing the work and talking to people. And it includes other kind of social things that remove programs, education department, et cetera. Each one of these points I have learned and studied and have been speaking about quite openly on my own views, and I think we'll cover some of them during this debate forum. Excuse me.
Thank you, Tim, very much. Okay, we have another question in the queue, but I just want to remind everyone to be thinking of your questions and continue to send a message to the one question moderator if you have a question for the candidates. So the next person with a question is Steve Miller. Mr. Miller, I would ask you to unmute and ask your question, and it will be directed first to Tim.
Good morning, and thank you. My question is around energy independence for the United States. And from where I stand, that when we had the pipeline, it kind of covers over a multitude of issues from the primarily the economy, but also from what I can see, the war in Ukraine. When we shut off our pipeline, we were unable to then also provide oil to Europe. And along with that, we also opened up the pipeline, or stepped by and let the pipeline open from Russia to Europe, which to me is helping fund Putin's war against Ukraine.
10 seconds.
So I just wanted to get your opinions, your understanding on where you stand on energy independence for the United States.
Thank you. So really complex, multiple piece issue here that we're going to talk about. And obviously it starts all with, how do we make our own energy sources that are not fossil fuel dependent, and what are our alternative energy sources? I think I'm a huge proponent of moving toward having electric cars be something that is all but mandatory, I would say, in terms of how we're building cars, not completely, and also making sure that that's tied to union labor. I'm all for moving towards solar, but it is a big problem in our district on how some of the solar companies and policies have been tried to be enacted, taking farmland preferentially rather than looking at how we can have cities and suburbs share that burden that we all must take in order to have in order to stop the climate emergency that we're in. And it is an emergency. In terms of fossil fuel and how we get there, there are other places we're using fossil fuel other than the energy we need to fuel our military or fuel our homes and cars. Those
10
include,
seconds.
as you've seen, plastic bags and plastic itself. And you've seen California go after Exxon and the fossil fuel industry for that. I think there are other ways to pick around the edges. but eventually we do need to get ourselves away from fossil fuel independence, and we need the energy now, so we can't completely shut down our own internal ability to use our own fossil fuels. So we need to be investing in that alternative energy much quicker than we already are, to be able to start to shut the pipeline, or shut the amount of gas that we're using, or excuse me, natural fuels that we're using internally.
Thank you, Tim. Russell, would you like to respond to that question from Mr. Miller, please?
Yes, I'm going to take a few seconds to go back to the last question and say that I believe that both of the old parties have come far from our founding principles, and I believe the right way to right that ship is to elect more libertarians. But as far as the energy independence, I'm 100% in favor of America being independent from the rest of the world, to relying on, the whims of different countries and political situations for our energy needs. And I believe that the solution is, once again, to get the government out of the way. There's people that want to drill, and we're stopping them. There's people that want to build nuclear plants, and we're stopping them. I think really our sustainable energy that we're going to get is nuclear, and I believe we need to go that direction.
Thank you very much, Russell. The next person in line to ask a question is Dave Burnworth. Dave, I would ask you to unmute and ask your question, keeping in mind that the question should be 1 minute or less.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on here. I'll ask a question on mass migration of illegal immigrants. There are obviously known terrorists and criminals from around the world coming into our country. There is indeed a threat of another 9/11 type of attack if these terrorists are being allowed in and can form an anti-U.S. movement. So what's your position on illegal immigration?
Thank you for that question, Dave. And we will direct that first to Russell.
Okay. The Libertarian Party's position is an open borders position, but that's something that I disagree with my own party. I'm not exactly an open borders person, I believe, but I also believe that our immigration system is broken, and what we need to do is eliminate the quota system. And I'm a big proponent of the Ellis Island approach, which is you show up, there's a port of entry, you come in, you're vetted, are you a criminal? Are you a terrorist? Are you healthy? Do you have a means of support, place to live, things like that? But you meet those qualifications, then welcome to America. And here's your ID number, and you can start working and paying taxes, and then work on getting your citizenship. So, I mean, I don't fault anyone who wants to bring their family to the United States and improve their lives.
10 seconds.
Yes, there should be a legal way for people to come to this country, and we should make it a lot easier than what it is.
Thank you very much, Russell. Tim, would you like to address that question?
Sure, and thanks for the question, Dave. It's one that I think a lot of people in my own party try to ignore. And it's something that I try to talk about in every forum that I'm in, as my views might be more moderate or to the right of many other Democrats. I do think we have an emergency in the country with immigration right now, and that emergency is affecting us in a number of ways. Not only, as you say, is it dangerous to not have great vetting systems, but also dangerous to economy, to not be able to ask for economic production from our immigrants in a way that is orderly and fair. And so I do believe the border needs more judges, more fentanyl sniffing machines, more police, and ability to shut that border down when we need to, at a much lower level of immigrants coming through than we have right now. It is an emergency, and we need to stop the bleeding. In the meantime, we have a lot of immigrants that have come into the country. One thing to say is we need immigrants in this country. I always speak
10
about
seconds.
healthcare. 10 seconds. And we need immigrants to be able to help this country thrive. So therefore, those that are in the country, there's two things to do. One is an on-ramp for economically producing immigrants to stay in the country. And then the other is to have a strong presence from our clandestine services in terms of FBI and CIA and others to be able to even put task force together to make sure that there's no threats in the country right now. And I would invest in those services to be able to do that as we have already, as we have this emergency and need to stop it. We need to work together to be able to stop this emergency, or as you say, there'll be some sort of consequence that's unintended. I don't know if it'll be what you talked about, but certainly could be.
Okay, Tim, thank you for that. And next, we have a question from Maria Douglas, and she has asked that I read the question to the candidates. Her question is as follows. Asian Americans are one of the fastest growing populations of registered voters. What are your plans to engage that community and keep Asian Americans safe? And I would direct that question first to Tim.
I mean, the rhetoric is extremely dangerous that we've had from our politicians around immigration from China, around those that are in our country. And we saw violence toward Asians, American Asians, and Asians in general rise. One place where I address is that, firstly, our physician population, as a physician and someone who's a member of the American College of Emergency Physicians, we know that almost a quarter of our physicians in this country, because of physician shortage, especially in primary care, are from immigrants, the majority of which in that population are from Asian countries. We need to be able to have our immigration system in place to be able to bring that population in. That's an in for me to speak to within my own academic society to that population, and that's where I have. There is also those that are here,
10 seconds.
here for multiple generations, part of the fabric of our country that we need to support. Thank you for the time. It looks like I just went over, but.
I know it's hard to wind things up sometimes, Tim. Russell, would you care to answer that question?
Sure. I'll kind of echo what Tim said, is that, this country needs immigrants, and, we are a melting pot. And I think at the heart of the question is, racism. And, how do we combat that? And I really don't think it's something that the government can combat. It's something that's going to be inherent in each one of us to show love to our fellow man. And the more we live that example, the better. We're always going to have racists within our society, and I would much rather them be able to speak freely, and so that I know who they are, and I can shun them and choose not to associate with them. What would I do to keep them safe?
10 seconds.
I fully support the Second Amendment. So I would allow them to do what they needed to do to defend themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. We have a question from Julie Hardesty. Julie, would you like to unmute and direct your question to both candidates, but I will be calling upon Russell to answer first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is for both candidates, how are you going to work to restore women's rights as full citizens with full control over what happens to their bodies? And how will you improve pay equity regardless of gender? Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Russell, you may answer.
There we go. I am pro-life, 100%. I'm the founder of the Pro-Life Libertarian Caucus within the Libertarian Party. I do not believe that a woman has the right to kill a child because they're inconvenient. But as congressman, I believe that the Supreme Court got it right, and they moved that issue back to the states. So there's nothing really that Congress can or should do, other than I personally would vote for a personhood amendment that defined life beginning at conception. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The second part of the question was, how would you work to improve pay equity regardless of gender?
I believe that the best way to do that is to let the marketplace handle it. And I'm a union member. I've been a Teamster for
10 seconds.
Over 20 years, and I would support the unionization, and because I know we all get paid the same where I work. So that's what I would promote.
Thank you, Russell. Tim, would you like to address those two questions from Julie?
Thank you, Julie. This is something I'm quite passionate about. I'm an emergency physician. I've treated a lot of women who have been raped, and I've treated girls who've been raped, and I've treated women who I have treated with an abortion in order to help them live and make sure that their life is saved. And the government does not belong in my exam room. Never once did I think about the government when giving my counsel to women and their family. And from there, you extrapolate to say the government it's impossible for them to ever write a law, a real good law that will dictate and be able to put borders around what a woman can do with their body. It is something that is a right and something that I will protect and fight for. I do want the restoration of the ability for women to be able to protect their own body, especially during the first and second trimester, in the third trimester if there is a threat to the life of the mother, and other exceptions that I'm very familiar with as a doctor. Of course, we should be able to do that. And this talk about post-birth infanticide is just rhetoric and really hurting our country to even be
10
talking
seconds.
about that. In terms of pay equity, childcare is terrible in Indiana in terms of access. We need better childcare, and universal pre-K needs to be in place. That will help set the gender gap and pay gap on its right course.
Thank you very much, Tim, for answering that question. We have another question from Ahmad Ali, and I will just ask the audience. This is the last question I have in the queue. So if you are thinking of a question, please direct it to the one question moderator so that we can continue this insightful discussion. Ahmad, would you like to ask your next question?
No problem. I won't reinvent the wheel here. I'll just read what I actually typed to make it easy. Like most Americans and Hoosiers, 9th District constituents deeply value Social Security. However, the incumbent and many Republicans say on the surface that they support Social Security, but they have been cutting the program for the past 14 years. The incumbent refuses to answer questions about this. The American people pay their hard-working money into the program, but Congress has been hurting overall Social Security services and gutting staffing. What do you both plan to do to call out the incumbent about this? And what would you do to make Social Security solvent and improve the services to the public? Services that this is not an expense for the government, because the American people pay into it, but Congress has been not making the best bang out of the buck of the constituents of the 9th District and the American people in general. So what do you both plan to do to call out the incumbent on this sensitive issue, and what would you
10
do
seconds.
to improve Social Security?
Thank you for that question, Ahmad. And I will call upon Tim to answer that question first.
So security is one of the greatest inventions that we've had as a society here in America in order to help our retired population live a productive life. We do know that Erin Houchin subscribes to many of the 2025 plan, much of the plan of her colleagues, and that she would reform Social Security or cut it or make it harder to retire with raising the age. And so, Ahmad, if I haven't called that out enough of Erin, I will make sure to do so moving forward. And I'll do that online and publicly right now. And so I don't think we should raise the age of which it's attainable. I do think that there should be salaries and asset measurement in which it phases out. As a physician, most of the physicians, I just don't think that I need Social Security. I should be able to have other ways of putting that money aside. But I do think I should still pay into that system to help my fellow man. And so I also think that there is actual reform that could be done in other places in the budget. Again, the entitlement of Medicare can be reformed to be much less expensive, yet have better experience and quality. And that money, that will save a lot of money, not only to save Medicare, but also Social Security, and even start to balance this budget.
Thank you very much, Tim. Russell, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, I personally don't believe that Social Security is sustainable no matter what we do, unless you want to take everybody's, 100% of your income. What I would like to see happen is a phasing out of Social Security. Those who have paid into it all their lives should, definitely get the benefits that they were promised. But the younger generation, 20, 21-year-olds who are just now entering the workforce, they should be able to keep the money that the government is taking from them and invest it however they want. Even if they just invested it in the S&P 500, they're going to get a better rate of return than they will from Social Security. And so I'm totally in favor of eventually getting rid of Social Security and getting the government out of that business. And I'm 100% in favor of voluntary foundations that help people in their older years. And as a Christian, I believe that God said that we needed to take care of our fellow man, but He didn't say that we should give that responsibility to government.
Thank you, Russell. I'm going to call upon Steve Miller again to ask a second question. And I will tell the audience that he's right now the last one in the queue. So if you have a question, please direct it to one question moderator. Steve, I will call upon you and direct your question first to Russell, and then Tim will answer second.
Thank you. It's a Second Amendment question. It's my understanding that there are about 10,000 schools in the country that have a concealed carry environment, and there's not been one school shooting at any of those schools. And there are lots of gun clubs across the United States. I've not heard of one mass shooting or shooting at any of those gun clubs. So my question to the two candidates is, do you believe Americans are safer in a concealed carry environment or in a sidearm-free environment? Thank you.
Russell, you may answer first.
Well, my response is, I want gay married couples to be able to defend their marijuana fields with automatic weapons. I am, 100% Second Amendment supporter. And, the reason why schools get shot up is because, it's a no gun zone. And I believe that if we gave our teachers the ability to defend themselves and their children, that those numbers would drop drastically. And so, yes, I think that a concealed carry environment is safer because, the bad guy doesn't know who's carrying. So we need to promote responsible gun ownership, and part of the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia, and regulated means
10 seconds.
Regulated means prepared. And so I'm a big advocate of, getting out there and practicing and making sure you're able to hit what you're aiming at.
Thank you, Russell. Tim, would you care to answer that question?
Sure. So, we had a rally the other day for District 9 and Democrats who were there. And this question came up: what do you feel about concealed carry at that rally? It was at the 4-H fairgrounds in Clark County.
It came on.
And not only did we, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's all right. Not only did we decide not to take away people's rights for concealed carry, but we also had security that we hired to be there with open carry. And there were other Democrats who I know that were there with concealed carry. Every single function that we're in, I actually know that there are concealed carry Democrats holding their guns here as Hoosier Democrats. It's not something in any way that I want to take away. I myself need to use a gun on this farm that I'm standing on right now, and think there's a use, and we're not going to take anyone's guns away, kind of thing. I disagree with one thing that Russell said, which that the reason we don't have school, I forget the exact wording, but
10
the reason that we
seconds.
don't have school shootings, et cetera, in those places is because of the guns, or what the problem is the guns safety. I think we have an enormous opportunity to help with the mental health crisis in this country, and to do a much better job with that, which will decrease the need for a lot of the protection through firearms. To answer your question directly, I do think concealed carry is given to us as a right in the Constitution, and we should maintain it.
Thank you very much, Tim. Next, we have a question from Pam Rader. She has asked that I read it to you, and I will be directing it first to Tim. The question is, if elected, what are the top 3 initiatives that you would pursue to benefit Indiana?
Certainly. So one I've mentioned already, which is women's rights and reproductive rights, and that includes IVF, of which I believe we put a bill in the Senate just now, but I would like to put a bill into the House almost immediately upon getting there. That includes all the quote unquote exceptions, but also restoring the rules that we had that were governing us just fine for 50 years that were removed from us. In the same way, we've allowed this question to go to the states, I think, is a bit of a joke. This state in Indiana, we have a supermajority that is blocking the ability to put this question on our ballot. So we don't have the ability to be able to vote on this and say what our word is of the people. And so being able to fix that problem, I think it needs to be done at the national level. Healthcare reform, Medicare reform, we've spoken about it. I still will get into more details when there's another question toward that that saves Medicare and also saves our ability to retire. I'd also add to retirement, there needs to be more private retirement reform to allow for better ways of saving, not just 401k, which people love their 401ks, but how to make more attainable group benefits like life insurance. And so retirement reform and healthcare reform are 2 of the largest places where I'll be working. Thirdly, it's just bipartisan civility working across the aisle. I will join something called the Problem Solvers Caucus, which has all moderate Republican and Democrats working together to be able to work on bills and get them across.
Thank you very much, Tim. Russell, would you like to answer that question as well?
Yes. My top priority after I'm elected will be to shrink the size of government and shrink the influence that it has over our lives. If we want to get money out of politics, what we're going to have to do is get politics out of controlling our lives. Because as long as there's power, as long as there's influence, then there's going to be people lining up outside the door of our congressman to buy that influence. So, there's a famous quote saying that the government should be small enough to drown in a bathtub, but I'd go even further. We need to drown it in a 5-gallon bucket. So that would be my main drive, is to shrink the size of government, get government out of our lives, allow us to make the decisions for our life, And of course, balance the budget. I think balancing the budget and stopping with this deficit spending
10 seconds.
is very important, because I think the spending that we have and the national debt is the most egregious things that's threatening America today.
Thank you very much, Russell. We now have an anonymous question that I will be directing to you. And Russell, I'll be asking you to address it first. The question is, can you share your thoughts on current conversations and attacks around DEI in higher education? Specifically, do you believe that programs that support access, success for underrepresented communities, veterans, differently abled, and racial and gender minority communities should be allowed to exist in higher institutions? Directing that first to Russell. And if I need to repeat the question, I'll be glad to read it again.
No, I think that we should leave the hiring practices of an organization, whether it's a multi-million-dollar corporation, mom and pop candy store, or an institute of higher learning. I think we should leave those decisions to those people. I don't support the government getting involved, setting quotas. I'm against affirmative action because I think it does more harm than good. And so, no, I would not support it. But I mean, I would support any university in their decision. If they wanted to implement these programs, then have at it.
Russell, thank you for your answer. Tim, do you need for me to reread the question, or?
No, that's all right. This one's, I think it's a false narrative when we talk about removing DEI restrictions, and especially in higher education. The argument that's been made through the Supreme Court and now where we are is that institutes of higher learning get public funding, and therefore they need to not be able to do restrictive practices. I think if that's the way we're going to speak about these things, then maybe we should start calling Medicare ageist. Maybe we should start calling Medicare against the disabled, because it covers disabled benefits. Maybe we should start talking about Medicaid, especially those who need it, who are part of the working poor, to be called classist. Maybe we should start talking about our VA benefits as being VA veteran over others. I think it's a false narrative, and we've lost sight of what we're trying to do in this country, which is create a way for everybody to be able to achieve the American dream. And I know, Russell, I respect what you say about removing government from all of our lives, and in many ways that would
10
be
seconds.
helpful. But the government programs that we have that are the pillars of our society in America can be used in such a way to prop up people that need help. And so, I think DEI programs are part of that effort of the government that helps all of us.
Okay, thank you, Tim. I will next be calling on Erica Green, and I will advise everyone that, I do have one additional person after Erica, but you need to keep the questions coming. We're having great broad variety of topics that we're covering, and we're getting very specific responses, which is great. So Erica, would you like to unmute and ask your question? And it will be directed first to Tim.
Sure, thank you. So we've heard the candidates mention that they would encourage some reform with certain programs, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, specifically things like Medicare as an example.
Okay, Tim.
I'm first. Thank you. So this opportunity to explain what I've been talking about. So the way healthcare is paid and Medicare is paid is based off of something called the fee-for-service schedule. It is the backbone of all of healthcare. And it is the thing that needs reform so that all the other programs can work better. The fee-for-service schedule says, as me as a physician, if I treat you, I get paid no matter what. Even if I hurt you, even if I kill you, I'm going to get paid, even if your experience is terrible or your experience is amazing and you have great outcomes and you get healthier, I get paid, but I get paid the same for both of those things. And so the business of healthcare has been created around providers and hospital systems, et cetera, trying to get their clinicians to treat as many people as possible to make more money. Because it doesn't matter if those patients get good care, good experiences, where the insurance companies then fight that and say, hey, stop spending so much money on unnecessary things. We need you to stop having so much bloat. And because of that, there's been an arms race where we have things like electronic medical record systems, pharmacy benefit management systems. We have prior authorization problems. These are all the arms race, the arms in this race, which creates so much bloat so that every time you pay a medical bill, you are not paying for the care that you're getting. You're actually paying for all of these tools that they're using to fight one another. If we change the fee-for-service to be something that is more based around value, meaning if I do a good job, I get paid more. If I do a poor job, I don't get paid or get paid less. It's not about the stuff I do, but the value I bring. It will change the entire way that the business works. This is called value-based care. There's a movement toward this already. The government, through Medicare, through the VA, through others, have already started to implement some of these programs in a test basis, as well as kind of chipping away around the edges. I think there needs to be fundamental reform in this way. I understand this world extremely well. I'm one of the experts in the country on it. And it is the first thing I will work on as a clinician who understands this world, as a handful of clinicians that will be in Congress, as opposed to the hundreds of lawyers, economists, and career politicians. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Russell, we turn to you now for your response.
Yeah, I'm gonna, echo what Tim said, about the value-based care. I think part of the problem of the Medicare system is again, it's a one size fits all, and there isn't a whole lot of incentive to be a great doctor. And where I think we disagree is that I believe the best way to implement this value-based care is through a free market, and with the government out of the picture. And, that way I can choose to, the free market will dictate which doctor I want to go to. And so, I hate to, it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but, the government is the problem. It's not the solution.
Russell, thank you very much for your response. Next, we have Tom Duffy. So Tom, I would ask you to unmute, and your question will be directed first to Russell.
So this is a question about education policy and funding at the federal level and what the role is in each of those areas. And to start off, like, public schools were central to the founding fathers. It wasn't just that we had to educate the population, but in fact, public schools brought the whole community together in the school so we could create the melting pot or an acceptable mosaic of people understanding each other and being able to accept each other's opinions, the sorts of things Tim talks about in terms of being able to talk to each other in a meaningful way. And I presume you do too, Russell. But today we have across the nation, and Indiana is leading the way, a voucher system that really is taking money away from public education and putting it into private schools who are not accountable to the state, basically not accountable. Brown County has just to take Indiana as the example, as being one of the leaders, has millions of dollars going to voucher programs. As I understand it, they do not have a voucher school in the county. So in essence, their education money is leaving the county. There's really important to kind of think about the long-term effect of this. If we go back to the 60s, when the Supreme Court ruling for school integration occurred, Virginia closed all their public schools, made them all private, so in fact they could continue segregation. It sounds to me that that's the direction the voucher system in fact could go into with the tribalism that's starting to occur in this country. So the question is, from a funding and policy point of view, what's the role of the federal government, of the Department of Education?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Tom. Russell, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I don't believe that the federal government has any role in education. I would vote to eliminate the Department of Education. I believe it's a bureaucracy that we don't need, and it's something that the federal government uses as a weapon against our local systems by passing unfunded mandates or making us implement things that we as a community don't want to implement by withholding funding, things like that. I believe that parents and the community knows they know what's best for their children, and I believe that the closer we can get that and those decisions to the parents, the better. And as far as vouchers, I'm in the camp where I support the vouchers. If your public school is not performing and you want to move your child, or if that school does not exemplify your values, then I believe you have every right. We as a nation, we force our children to go to school. It's a law. And so if we're going to force children to go to school, then we should provide them with the best education possible, and the people who make that decision should be the parents.
Russell, you didn't respond to any of my concerns about that fact in terms of what happened in Virginia, in terms of the breaking down of a society by the voucher program.
Okay, well, if I may, I forget who it was, but it was a Black civil rights leader that kind of addressed that by saying that when they wouldn't let us in a school, we built our own schools, and the Black community was better off for it.
Wow.
Because, hear me out, because it had a sense of community. I believe in the free market. I believe that it's not up to the government to extinguish racism. Like I said, I think it's up to us. And if the government isn't providing that, the free market will.
Thank you, Russell. Tim, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Firstly, Indiana is not a leader in education policy right now. It is something that all of America should look at as how education policy can become dangerous should we try to privatize our public dollars to go into private schools. So the voucher program is hurting so many of our children, our families, and our counties. As you say, taxpayer money is not only going out of county into other counties, it's going from counties out of state, and we're not getting any value out of that. There are other states that do voucher programs well, or have better practices, and we can learn from that. So deregulation completely of this. What is the federal role in all of this? There's a few places where we can play. First of all, just purely how do we stimulate the economy, and how do we get people back to work, and how do we close gender gaps, as we talked about, as well as a good secondary benefit, universal pre-K, but childcare access, and having that will get people back to work and also allow us to have 0 to 5 education. Stronger unions and removing right to work policies is one way to help with education in the state through federal means. And by that, I mean, when giving any federal money, you can very much tie it to not that shop or that school has to be a union shop, but that they have the same protections and same treatment of their employees and their teachers as a union shop might. So breaking down our unions here in Indiana has just been part of that whole progress or process to be able to bring money out of public schools. There are other ways to get education in other than the education department. You talk about opioid funding and opioid education. You talk about other places such as gun safety and gun control and gun training, I should say, is how I'm trying to look at it. There's money that comes from that from the Surgeon General. And how do we put that in the schools for people to get better knowledge of guns? There are other places to get money in through federal to get playing in education in a better way. And some of our money should be going toward that. That includes the military. We can be able to bring some of that money into our schools to have them be teaching as well.
Thank you very much, Tim. I'm going to take one more question from the audience, and then we will be moving into our closing. So the next question is from Judy Berkshire. Judy, if you would please unmute and ask your question and direct it first to Tim.
Okay. If one is born into generational poverty, they have a great deal of difficulty rising out of that situation. What are some specific ways you would use your position as a congressperson to help these individuals, particularly the younger ones?
Tim?
Thank you. There's a ton of ways, so I'll talk about one for you, which is, housing, and especially first-time housing. We are seeing people having to wait into their 30s, 40s to get their first home. This has to do with, started really with the housing crisis in mortgage-backed securities in 2007-8, and has only moved forward since then in a number of ways. How do we allow first-time buyers to have cheaper housing? Well, we need to incentivize builders to make more affordable starter homes. One way to do that we're seeing is talking about giving loans at lower interests to those who are buying first-time homes, of which I like this idea a lot, especially and having interest rates be set for government loans to first-time buyers at a low interest rate. We'll get that money back from them. We don't need to rake them for more money at high interest rates. The rest of the loan can come from the private mortgage banks to be able to help get those homes. But I do think we can stimulate the economy in that way and make a larger housing supply for first-time homeowners.
Thank you, Tim. Russell.
Yes, if I may, I'd like to say just a little bit about the last question. I do want to make it clear that I'm 100% against racism and definitely against the government having racist policies. I don't believe that the voucher program in Indiana would move us towards that. As far as what I would do to help, the younger generation get out of poverty is real simple, is get the government out of their way. There's barriers to opening businesses. I would lower their taxes so they have more money to invest. So, those are things, that the government is standing in our way, and we need to get them out of the way.
Thank you, Russell, very much for those comments. At this point in time, we're going to move into the closing statements. You will each have 90 seconds or 1.5 minutes to give your closing remarks, and we will start with Russell.
All right, thank you. I want to thank the league for putting this on. I want to thank Tim for showing up and facing the questions. And I want to thank everybody who's participated today. I really enjoyed answering your questions, and I hope you have learned a little bit about me. I will say to you that, like it says over here, get out there and vote, vote your conscience. We mentioned tribalism earlier, and I think that's something that's really damaged our country. And, our founders warned us against political parties. So I would urge you to vote according to the person that best matches your values. Forget what letters next to their name. And
10 seconds.
And personally, I don't care who you vote for, just get out there and vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell. Tim, we now turn to you for your final remarks.
I am committed to representing every Hoosier here in Indiana 9. Sonia, thank you so much for a well-run forum. Russell, thank you to you, who I know not to be a racist person and agree with that. I disagree with your policies, and we can do that all day long. And I think that's a good and healthy way to move forward. So I'm glad you got a moment to re-explain yourself there. Again, we face this significant challenge where we can't seem to disagree and keep moving forward. And so my whole plan has to do with reaching across the aisle and finding ways to compromise. I believe what I believe in and I want it. It doesn't mean that I can't compromise to help make things move forward toward a different future. This is a very winnable race. I need Indiana 9 to know that for myself, as well as Indiana is closer than it's ever been. Look at the governor's race. We have our Libertarian candidate polling at 8-9% right now, and we have Braun at a very low rate, and McCormick only two points down. Those are races that can be won, my own race included. We need Democrats, liberals, independents, moderate Republicans, and even libertarians to come out and be able to close this gap and win this.
10 seconds.
It's been in 15 years. I'd say you have a choice here. We have a pro-life Hoosier here in Russ versus someone who's very adamant about women's rights. And I think that makes a clear choice for you, as well as how we see about the role in government. So please, you have great choices here on this forum based on us showing up and telling you what we have to say, as opposed to our opponent who decided to stay home. Thank you so much. Appreciate everything. All these questions, they've been informative and helped me think about the world a little bit different way as well.
Well, Tim and Russell, thank you both so much for being with us today. And as you both have pointed out, our government requires participation, and the ultimate participation is casting your vote. But behind that is coming to forums like this, both as candidates and as individuals wanting to ask questions and get answers and be informed voters. And I thank you all for participating in this process. And I know I'm kind of the face of the forum on behalf of the sponsors, but there's a team behind every time we do this kind of activity. And I hope you'll make note of the fact that our sponsors are the League from Bloomington, Monroe County, Brown County, and the new Southern Indiana League that just recently formed, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Kappa Tau Omega Chapter, the Big Ten Voting Challenge, Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, Indiana University Political and Civic Engagement, Monroe County Branch of the NAACP, Monroe County Now, South Central Indiana Citizens Climate Lobby, Southern Indiana Citizens Climate Lobby. All of those are our sponsors. We also thank Community Access Television for allowing us to record this forum. Thank you all so much for your participation, your excellent questions, and all of the important things that go into making a decision for this momentous election. Thank you very much.